Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time, thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Becky Brown.
Well, I hope that you are all doing well wherever you are today. It's the one day every 4 years. I'm sure that Jim and Jill, we are joined by Dr. Jill Hubbard and Jim Burns. Did you guys ever know that about leap year? That's like the leap day is the day that it corrects so that we're not celebrating seasons in the wrong time.
Well, I knew there was a reason for it.
I learned something new today on New Life. I'm very happy about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we're going to learn some more because Jill's going to share something with us. You were teaching on trauma last time we were together. Jill, say more about that.
Okay, right. And this has nothing to do with leap year. So hope none of you are traumatized by leap year. But a couple of days ago in one of our shows, I started talking a little bit about traumatic responses. Okay. So, and you guys can feel free to add in. So I wanted to continue that. So let me just recap. We all understand traumatic responses to be the God-given fight or flight responses that help to protect us, right? And if we look at really kind of the order of things, really, if you're in a situation where there is danger, the first thing is to flee if you can, right? That's the best case. When you can't flee, then to be able to fight is a really good thing to do. Now, these are a little healthier response, even though they also have their downsides. When you can't fight, the tendency is to freeze. And so people go into a kind of like the playing possum almost, right? Or the deer in headlights I talked about. Sometimes people freeze by dissociating, and it's like they're not even present. Their body's there, but no one's home. I talked about a fourth F, which was fawn, and that's where it's not a frozen state, but it's more like a please and appease. If you can, win this person over, then maybe they won't hurt you. And looking about those responses, those are all ways that the brain is trying to protect, right? The problem is with trauma is that those responses get kicked in and get kind of wired in, and they continue even when danger is not present. Right? And as therapists too, we're also looking at more of the complexities of it, right? Okay. And in kind of the freezing zone or the fawning zone, okay, I mentioned pleasing and appeasing. Sometimes you're so full of fear and you encounter a situation that reminds you of a trauma, and there's almost like this internal collapse, and where you're just submitting to whatever anyone wants. Sometimes there's this desperate neediness, and we've all encountered people that come across really needy, and yet any help that's given doesn't seem to take hold or take effect, right? And so when people are in these stages, again, they're in a more primitive place in their brain, and they cannot jump into adult processing. So I'm hearing the music. Okay, so one of my main points, though, was that a lot of times people have had big traumas, but sometimes there's little traumas. And Becky, maybe I could continue after the break a little bit for a second, just to make a final point here as we're coming
after the call. Be right back.
Okay.
After this break.
Hi, this is Steve Arterburn from New Life Live, and Chris Williams and I are doing the Emotional Freedom Workshop. A lot of people are you could literally say, in bondage from past trauma that has created an emotional web that they don't understand, and it prevents them from being free. A person that loses their temper regularly is not emotionally free. Someone who has anxiety just to get in the car and leave the house is not emotionally free. And walking around with the shame from a childhood or even a bad relationship as an adult, That is not emotional freedom, and we can help you get there.
The New Life Emotional Freedom Online Intensive is Saturday, March 16th. Steve Arterburn, Chris Williams, and Dr. Jackie Mack Harris will present information on trauma, depression, codependency, and more. And small group leaders will help you process the information you learn. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or register online at newlife.com. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Here we are back at New Life.
Jill,
Becky, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jill started on a conversation about trauma, and we're going to hear the rest of it.
Right. So the break kind of interrupted me. So I just wanted to make the point that whatever your response is, if you're finding that it's lingering, this is certainly a reason to seek out help, right? And sometimes it takes a little time to tease out what's really going on. Sometimes with a person, like some people can have horrific things happen to them and they seem almost unfazed. Whereas so many times in my practice, I run across people that say, but everything was great. Why am I having these responses? And so people's responses to trauma is what is significant, not the trauma itself. Whatever has happened to you is not what's significant. It's how you have reacted in life. And everyone's nervous system is wired a little differently. And so if yours is reacting, even if there doesn't seem to be a big T trauma, there's probably likely a small T trauma, or what we call cumulative trauma, which is little traumas over time. So there is meaning to why you are reacting. And when you're getting stuck in these more primitive places, you need some help to get regrounded, to get re-regulated, and to get your adult brain back online.
I think that's great advice, and it's really good to learn about trauma. We hear about trauma all the time, and I don't think people understand it. I actually had somebody say last week to me that they had had no trauma, and after a couple of questions, they revealed these major traumas that they had had, but they just didn't think of them as trauma. And so it's just good to do a historical just look back at your life, not because you're trying to find a problem necessarily, but these responses that you're talking about, Jill, are really good diagnostically. You can figure out why you're responding that way, and so it helps that
and
way.
to help you not
That's
condemn your reactions,
and
right?
the words you use, cumulative trauma, that's really good, because I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I haven't had that big of a trauma. I didn't have somebody die. I didn't have, I wasn't in this accident. I'm somewhat healthy. But when you start adding up some of the things that are going on in your life, that's cumulative trauma. And that trauma can sometimes be tougher on your body, on your emotions, on your psyche.
It is a lot of times, right? Because when something big has happened, it's like we recognize it. It's like it's legitimate. And so a lot of times people feel like they're not legitimate. And let me also just say, we're not trying to make victims out of everyone, right? We're trying to help equip people to rise above it.
Yeah, on another time you'll have to help me understand it. The fifth F for me is food. It's chocolate chip cookies is my downfall. So if you could help me sometime on that one. So there's another F, and it's food.
Which is a way to dissociate, right?
Oh,
because
totally.
food shuts down feelings.
Totally.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, let's see if we can help a few people. We're going to talk to Lori, who's calling us from Pittsburgh, listens on the internet. Hey, Lori, thanks for calling today. How can we help you?
Yeah, as I put in my question, I figured out recently I have two narcissistic parents, it seems like, 87, 84. I was with them off and on for about 6 months this last year when they were both in hospital, and I was trying to help them recuperate. Anyways, my question has been, how do I confront them on all this trauma they've put on me? Speaking about trauma, how do I confront them? If I just had my parents to do it, that would be one thing. But I've got my two brothers, and they're in on this. One brother is very good at stroking people for what he wants, and it sounds very good. And then, oh, wait, that's not it. And so he's been doing that with my parents, I'm sure, in the background. And then my other brother just shoots mom. Mom likes to climb his shoulder, and so he comes at me, gives me the straight full thing of what mom said, and it's just. And so I've been dealing with that dynamic for like the past 6 months. It ended with Christmas, and my family came there. It wasn't just me; it was my family came out there to do nothing but just visit my parents. And my brother shot me this text that about not visiting my parents because they were in my dad was in hospital. And I was like, we did visit them. Would it be great to have to check in or something if I have or haven't, visited them? And it was my mom, I think, that was crying on my brother's shoulder, trying to play the victim. And no one's visited us. And she also has some dementia going on. So between those two, I was like, again, I'm playing the scapegoat thing. That seems to be my role. So my question is, how do I confront them on this? My sister-in-law has really very repeatedly warned me that I'm just going to get probably worse hurt than I was during the time I was there. I read on the internet about narcissists. They say, you don't confront narcissists. I'm just like, I don't know.
So, Lori,
Yeah.
Lori, I just want to clarify a little bit. So you're telling us that your parents are both narcissistic?
Yeah.
Okay, so you believe, but they're also, your mom's in early dementia, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do.
And my dad kind of too.
Okay, so we do know as people age, they regress and they become more self-focused and self-centered. So what was ever there before kind of is heightened, right? And with dementia, there is also, that also mimics narcissism. Like all they can think about is what's in front of them, right?
Yes.
I have a relative that calls to tell me the weather repeatedly, right? And then hangs up, like ask me no questions about me, as if that's the most important thing that I would want to know about, right? So, right. So, okay, so it's important to remember that. So they're not able to connect the dots. And so whatever hurt that you have had with them over the years, that's something for you to work out, for you to go to therapy, work out with sane people, right? Okay, so these narcissistic parents created a dynamic that's still perpetuated with, you have two brothers?
Yes, I'm the oldest, and there's two brothers below me, yes.
Okay, so when you have narcissistic parents, some people become codependent and depressive, while other people take on those narcissistic characteristics. So,
the codependency has been since my brother was, I was in college or earlier, and I'm 60 now. So
yeah, so you took on the codependent depressive role?
No, my brother did.
Your brother.
He's
Okay.
the codependent.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like infantized, yes.
Okay, so now because he's been very caregiving and codependent with them, he kind of controls things. Is that what you're telling me?
He has the way, he's had this free gravy train for years, and so different things that I've done to help my parents was like, if it seemed to be contradicting or endangering what I would call the free gravy train, being able to come to the house and I don't know, everything that he wanted or wants was like, and mom and dad might complain, Lori's just, ripping through the house and trying to get rid of things to move us out or something. And when they were moving to retirement center, so Richard's like, strokes, that's bad,
Okay,
so my other brother's the one that shoots the own thing, so yeah.
Okay, so you each kind of have your roles in this family and nobody agrees, right? So yeah. Okay, so can you repeat your question now that we've gotten all that?
It's so convoluted. they're
like, is it how to deal with your brothers?
Well,
I'm wondering. Well, but Lori, I'm wondering if. Yeah, I'm wondering if you don't need a family session, like everybody in the same room to try and find the places where you gather together. Because what I heard you say is that your experience with your parents is different than your brother's, but also the frustration of what does the future look like. And this is a common experience for adult sons and daughters as parents age. And then you said your mom is dealing with early dementia. So then there's that issue.
Yeah.
Jim, what would you add to this conversation?
Well, I was thinking, Lori, you're in a tough situation. We sometimes talk about the sandwich generation with kids, but you're actually with your
mom. Yeah, she betrayed me. She offered me the house like a year ago last Christmas, and I felt like baited me. And then, it's last I die, Lori. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So
well, there's a couple of thoughts on this. One is, Lori, if you feel good, we're talking about roles, and you're going to have to find the role in this family that works for you. And it sounds like your brother's taken a real good job of being the codependent, so you don't need that. And and the codependent's going to sometimes put guilt on you and whatnot, and that's just how it is. You're going to have to feel comfortable with yourself. So not only as one of them, I can't remember now, talked about, maybe a family session. That may work, it may not. I mean, family meaning when you have an 84 and an 87-year-old, let's be honest, it may not get better. I hate to be the bearer of bad news in that way.
You're right.
So the session may be with your brothers and try to work some things out. Feel comfortable in your own self. Get help for you. So that you don't feel guilt.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So that you don't feel guilt and shame. And, you may have to change your role a little bit. Maybe your role is if you can, to come in there and be the loving, fun daughter and let them take care of some of the responsibility stuff that you could as the first child. But let them do it. They want that role. And you may lose out. I mean, honestly, like I say, like you've said, you think one of the brothers is, kind of taken on some things. You may have to lower your expectation of the house or whatever it might be.
On my parents' dad's, that's his baby.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is make sure that you get taken care of yourself. That's not a selfish thing, by the way. You can be more effective with your brothers. You can be more effective with your parents if you're feeling better about your role. And I think that happens with a lot of us because as our parents age, we do start finding what our role is in that. And if we can get comfortable with that, then it's just going to go a long way.
Well, and Jim, I think you were saying too, maybe you three siblings and spouses need to talk just about logistics and handling things.
Right.
Obviously, the person that sees your parents the most, they're going to remember the most, right? And so things are not going to be equal. If they see you less or talk to you less, they may not always remember that you've called, right?
Yeah.
And so it can feel very invalidating. And so I think to be able to talk about dementia and what happens in dementia with your brothers and how what are you each going to do in helping?
Yeah, and there's parts of it where you almost have to see the humor in it. When my dad was in this case, and it was about that age, my brother would say, "Hey, Dad says you haven't seen him for a couple of weeks." I said, "I was there yesterday." And he would go, "Well, you're not getting any points because, he forgot." And then my dad would say, "I haven't seen your brother any place." And I went, "Well, he was there yesterday." "No, he wasn't." And then I find out he was. So sometimes that's almost, there's a sadness that they're losing, but there's also kind of a funny part, just going, "Oh my gosh, that's Dad, that's the experience." So I'm not telling you just to walk away from it, but you do have to be able to understand that what your family's going through is a short-term experience. I hate to say this, but people at your parents' age, it's going to be a different story in 5 years. So be working with your siblings so that you can still have relationship with your siblings, but not. I wouldn't worry too much about some of the details if you're not unless you want to fight. If that's the battle you want to fight, then do it.
It's not going to be equal. You have to accept that. And at the end of parents' lives, kids still want to know that they're loved and valued. And that's often seen through what is left behind. Yeah. And that always leaves you coming up short when you look at it that way.
Lori, I wish we had a book that said how to navigate this. I'm thinking, Jim, you probably need to write one like that. But, because what you said to her, though, is very powerful. Lori, you're going to have to do your own work. I'm going to send you Healing as a Choice because here's the thing. You don't want to be in reaction to your brother, to your parents, whether they said you were going to get the house or not. You do not want to be strapped up into that. In Ephesians 4, where it says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, all that stuff, get rid of it. because you're not going to take it with you, and you don't want to risk your connection with your family. It's not fair all the time.
Nope.
I mean, we've heard all kinds of stories, and we want you to be able to be helpful where you can, to stay in connection with your family, and see that this next chapter, for those of us who have been through it, it is more challenging than you may even realize, because you see your parents, they look the same, they don't think the same. And, we just want to keep that connection strong. Thanks for calling. We'll be right back.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hid with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I would have getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I have given to New Life regularly because I have so many people that I am referring to New Life who so benefit from the ministry. I just can't imagine what would happen in my area if New Life wasn't available to us.
You can help New Life Live stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the new member thank you gift of all 8 100-day devotionals, including 100 Days of Prayer, 100 Days of Freedom from Depression, and 100 Days of Peace. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, free shipping on purchased resources, discounts on workshops, and quarterly online meetings with Steve. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are glad that you joined us in whatever way that you are listening. I know we have people that are listening on the podcast and the app and online and our radio program as well. And I just want to invite you, if you're listening in another way, you can call us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 1 to 3 Eastern at 1-800-229-3000. We've got some calls. We're going to continue to go back to the calls. We're going to talk with Anthony, who's calling us from Austin, Texas, listens on Sirius XM. Hi, Anthony. Thanks for waiting. How can we help you today?
Hi. Thank you guys for taking my call today. I have a mother, and I suffered some abuse when I was a child, actually a lot. And I wound up moving with my dad, and I didn't talk to her for about 15 years. And we recently reconnected. I found Christ, and I wanted to offer forgiveness and talk to her. But as soon as we reconnected, the only thing she wanted to talk about was me loaning her money. And as soon as I established a boundary and said no, she cut me back off and doesn't talk to me, doesn't return my calls, doesn't even call my daughter. So I'm wondering if I should just suck it up and just, give her money to keep her in my life, or should I just go back to our default setting, which is just not talking. So I'm just looking for a little advice.
It's so hard, Anthony. It's hard because you have an expectation that there would be a reconnection. Jill, how about we start with you?
Anthony, ouch. Here, you're in a place where you're trying to reconnect and hoping for something, and she asks you for money. And Anthony, if we look at what does that behavior mean? One, it means your mom is desperate. Two, is she really interested in reconnecting with you, or is she just interested in getting her survival needs met? And sometimes because we've come to a better place, we're willing to offer forgiveness. We forget that maybe the other person hasn't done the work, and they might be in the same place where we left them. Just time has passed, and that's it. They've gotten a little older. That's the only difference. Or they've gotten worse over time.
Yeah.
And is that what you really want your daughter exposed to? I mean, you could appease her and give her money, sure, and she'll talk to you for a little bit until she needs it again. And as soon as you say no, she's gonna like shut you out.
Yeah, she borrowed $2,000 in the span of about 4 weeks, and I felt bad because she needed it for rent, and we were talking, and it felt good to actually talk to her. But the second I said no, it was like, well, wow, okay. So that hurt a little bit. I'm not gonna, even though I haven't talked to her consistently, it still hurts to have her back out of the relationship.
Oh, absolutely. And so that $2,000 was a gift to her, correct?
Correct.
Because you know she's not going to pay it back.
Yeah, it's so hard. Anthony, did you say that you just came to Christ just recently?
This was probably 5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So in the process of, finding this new life of yours, you're wanting to reconnect with your birth mom. That makes total sense.
Yep.
But you know what's so hard about the boundaries, is that they don't feel good even though they are good. And I don't know the whole story with your mom, but let's hear what Jim has to say about this. But we feel for you.
Anthony, I have a quick question for you. Have you dealt with the abusive relationship that you had with your mom? Have you worked through that internally? You didn't speak for 15 years. So have you dealt with that? Do you feel at peace?
Yeah, I actually had to go to therapy for it. It was tough, and the second I try and talk to her about it, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
So I have to avoid certain conversations and just not be myself with her.
Yeah, right. And what kind of a relationship do you want now? You understand the abusive parts that were going on in your life. What kind of a relationship do you actually hope for with her?
Just maybe to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with her. I mean, my daughter has never even met her. That would be a good start, just to come visit. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, what's interesting is that's a positive move in the sense of I didn't hear you say I want her to nurture me for the rest of my life and I want her to take care of me, and actually that's really positive because she's not going to do that. She's not. She doesn't have that capacity. It sounds like. So when Becky said, boundaries, there's boundaries have consequences, and there's good consequences with boundaries. But also the one that sometimes hurts is when we have a boundary and it didn't work. You made the right boundary. There's no, all of us would say what you did is right. How nice that you loaned / gave her the $2,000. That can't keep going on, obviously. So, time may heal. It's what I call a reverse estrangement, because a lot of times we get people calling saying, I'm estranged from my children. You're estranged from your mom.
Right.
And so, the things that you have
she's the acting out child.
Exactly, she is. So that means that, you can take some baby steps. Maybe that will happen. Maybe you do invite her. Maybe you say, can we come by for 15 minutes with my daughter? Don't even talk about that stuff and just, maybe that changes. But that's the kind of thing. I think you got to take some baby steps on that. And see what happens.
I was thinking.
A holiday may have too many expectations around it. I think a non-holiday time, Mom, I just want you to meet my daughter. I want to try to connect with you. No, Mom, I can't give you money.
Yeah, I'm coming by with some food. I'm coming by with flowers, something like that.
Yep, great idea.
Okay.
Yeah, baby steps, Anthony. We are going to send you a copy of Healing is a Choice. I think it'll help you with this process. We're glad you called. We'll be right back after this.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. there's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit its addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are so grateful to be here and to offer so many ways for you to find freedom in your life. And one of those things is emotional freedom. We have our online event that is coming up March 16th, and we have a free quiz at newlife.com so you can check your level of emotional freedom. We have an early bird rate that ends tomorrow. So I want to invite you, if you have not already signed up for emotional freedom, there are some spots left, and we would love for you to spend the day with us. Online is pretty convenient. I mean, when you could get lots of help. We're going to still have the breakout groups. Chris Williams, Steve Arterburn, and Dr. Jackie McHarris all present, and it's just a great way to get some movement in your life so that you can experience that new life. Right now, we're going to go back to the calls, and we're going to speak with Michael, who's calling us from Evansville, Indiana, listens on Pure Radio, and we're so glad you called. Michael, how can we help you today?
Hey guys, short time listener, fourth time caller. I have I don't know if it's a problem, but just last night, a buddy of mine, his dad passed. And I don't have an emotional reaction to that. I know that he obviously does and will next time I see him. And I have no problem listening to people talk about it, being there for them, being kind. But whether it comes to, and I also had, as I was thinking while I was on hold, I seem to be less affected if the person has had a long life, even if they ended from cancer or heart attack or something like that. If they've had a long life, I feel even less emotionally struck, whereas if somebody is younger, you might think, well, that shouldn't have happened to them. I'd be more affected, and if they are close to me, I feel more affected. But in general, I don't have a strong reaction to death, and I don't have a desire to pray for them because I don't know. Whatever the situation is, I feel like it's done in my mind. And so my first question is, am I normal? Second, is there anything that I need to do or can do to have a better reaction if that's the case?
You know, Michael, I love your honesty, and I love awareness in anybody, right? I mean, that's the first step. But Jim, what would you offer, Michael?
You know, Michael, I was smiling because I think you're normal. I think that's what happens. I mean, for a couple of things. One is when people have lived a long life, you can rejoice and celebrate. They're with Jesus. There's a better life ahead of them, and they lived a good life. When it is always harder when somebody, dies early or dies in an accident, things like that. I appreciate that you understand also that you don't have to feel the depth of emotion for your friend's dad who passed, but how cool that you want to help them. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I have a friend whose wife was dying, and some guy, he's a pastor, and some guy would come in from his church and would hold his hand. He's a truck driver, kind of rough hands, never say anything, not even give him advice, just kind of be there for him and say, hey, can I get you some coffee? Do you need anything? And then he would leave. And my friend said, I never wanted that guy to leave. Other people came and gave advice and even offered prayers, and I'm never said prayer is never a bad thing. But he said, I couldn't wait for them to leave as I was going through this grief, but it was just this truck driver guy who just came, and it was the power of being there. You just said that. Mm-hmm. So that's what your friend needs. You don't have to feel the same empathy. I mean, you have to feel empathy, but you don't have to feel the same pain or struggle.
And if you did feel the same depth of feeling, you would be of no use to them, because then it would be all about your feelings.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think you're awesome, and I think you're normal, and I think a lot of us feel that way. I do.
Well, and someone who's
I was just going to say, we always say that normal is a setting on a dryer, right? But Michael, we think you are normal, but it's also, grief is that personal experience. It's not, everybody doesn't feel the same way. So there's no judgment on you because of that. Jill, sorry. I interrupted.
Well, right. That's okay. So when people have lived a long life and they pass, right, for the person whose parent it is, right, it's always too soon. Right? But it does fit the normal course of the life cycle, right? And so that's what you're saying. When it's outside of the normal life cycle, we see it as tragic instead of, here is life. It tends to carry on. And so, Michael, as you're reflecting on this, I would also look, are there other areas of life where you find that you have less feeling about? Or is it just this area? If it's just this area, I don't think you need to worry. And some people tend to intellectualize their feelings more. Other people, it's all emotive, right? And so kind of what is the range of normal for you in reactions to emotional content? And then how do you see yourself in terms of kind of across the board when things happen in life that you see maybe others having more emotion too?
Well, so just off the top of my head, there are a lot of different reactions I've had to different things. But one that popped into my mind was when 9/11 happened. I didn't understand the magnitude of it. I mean, I was 18.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the magnitude of it until I was like 22 or 20. There was definitely a delay in my response of, that was a really bad thing that happened. And it was a few years before I had that response to it.
Right.
That's normal.
Well, and I think too, we kind of have become, with our exposure and saturation of tragic events, we've become desensitized, I think, as a people, right? And it's kind of almost like watching a video game, the way life is. And once in a while, a scenario will jump out that feels like it hits closer to home, that is tragic. But again, if we let ourselves feel the magnitude of everything in this world that's happening, we wouldn't be able to get out of bed. So we have to have some way of filing that information and not letting everything take on the same level of importance.
And Jill and Jim, speak to the idea of becoming familiar with your own emotions. Because I think, Michael, you're questioning your own self because you're comparing it to others. What is normal, what's typical, what's, what's expected. If it's just stressing you, that's worth exploring, because just like Jill said in the beginning, trauma will shut down our reaction. You may be in a trauma state. And so, Jill, I don't know if you want to say more about that, but that's what I'm
I think since you are reflecting on yourself, I would kind of do that daily, right? And maybe, kind of take inventory at the end of the day. Okay, what are 3 different things that I felt during the day? Right? Did I have emotional reaction to? And start to become more aware instead of, mad, glad, sad, or afraid, right? Like, there are more extensive lists of feelings, and kind of tease it out a little bit and see. And when you have an emotion, right, then be able to say, okay, what did I do with that?
Right.
Was my tendency to shut it down? Did I just kind of freeze in the face of that? Did I run from it? And look at exactly kind of how you are processing that.
Even the question you ask us at the beginning is a really healthy question, because you're saying, am I normal? How am I feeling? So what I hear Jill saying is, ask that question more often. Was this a normal reaction, not just with your friend whose dad passed, or somebody who's lived a long life, or those kinds of things, but because you want to be in touch with your emotions. And if you're not in touch with your emotions, then it's going to leak out in different ways. So, find people around you. I'm in a small group. We talk about this all the time, how we're feeling. Some guys have trouble saying the word feeling or identifying their feelings. She just said sad, glad, mad. There's guys who say, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I am. So, be around people where you can feel comfortable to do that. And I think you find that, frankly, Michael, at your church, in a men's small group. Sometimes it's obviously through therapy or coaching or with your pastor or whoever, but be in touch with your emotions and, stay in touch with that. And sometimes I find in my own self, I've been married to Kathy for a long time, but I'll say, how am I doing? What do you think? And sometimes I'll be honest with you, I don't like her answer. Okay. And she tells me, well, I think you I don't think you're in touch with that.
Michael, we talk.
My reaction is relative, like the normality of my reactions are relative to those around me, the culture around me.
Michael, what we're saying is that but it's a little bit of a tweak, is that it's not about everybody. It's about getting familiar with how you respond. Yeah. We're going to send you a copy of How We Love, which may seem counterintuitive, but it's going to have the soul word list in there. It talks all about where our attachment style comes from, which will speak to a lot of what you were asking, Michael. Yes. And I just think that it can be very helpful, and maybe make a copy of that soul word list, tape it to your refrigerator, and ask yourself every day, I need to find 3 feelings that I felt today. It's really, it's not that you have to measure what everybody else is doing, but you do have to recognize, I do have feelings, I can express myself, and it may be a little bit different than somebody else. We're glad you called. It was a great question. And we'll be right back after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. Daniel Grossman on coaching.
Coaches are really focused on the future and helping people to develop those skills and those strategies to help them move forward in their life. A coach really partners with you to focus on things like personal growth or health goals, spiritual growth, helping you develop in your career, or possibly strengthening your relationships, or maybe even breaking free from a negative pattern.
If you need a coach for life, your career, relationships, your health and fitness, leadership, and more, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
Coaches use different techniques. Some like to use strategic questions and accountability, ultimately empowering you to take those next steps towards your goals.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and talk to us about getting a New Life coach today.
I really believe that everyone can use a coach in their corner.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are so glad that you joined us today. And I mentioned that Emotional Freedom online workshop that's going to be March 16th, but we also have our Every Man's Battle that's starting tomorrow in Dallas, Texas. And so if this is an issue, don't wait. Join us in Dallas. We have so many ways that you can be part of an intensive that could change your life. I know it will. We've been doing it for just a little bit of time, maybe 20 some years. And we've had thousands of people that have gone through and done the work, and it has changed everything about their lives. So we want to invite you to reach out, call us, and we'll get you connected. Right now, we are going to go next call with Andy. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, listens on KBXL. Hello, Andy. Thanks for calling. How can we help you today?
Yeah, I have a question. I've been married twice, 2 long-term marriages, and I've been single for about 5 years now. And I wanted to ask, I deal with masturbation, right, wrong. I always feel guilty when I do it. I really don't even know how to ask the question, to be honest with you. I mean, I was molested at a very young age in my life, so I've always dealt with guilt about sex and what have you. And
Andy,
now that I'm single again, I'm like, what do I do?
Andy, have you done any healing work regarding the past sexual victimization?
I've gone to counseling, and I know that's just, that's something that wasn't my fault.
Right.
Even though I know that in my mind, the guilt has always lived with me, because I always think in my subconscious, I don't know if it's Satan saying, I could have done something to stop it. But I can't go back and change what happened.
Gosh, Andy, it's heartbreaking when we hear these stories because your body responds because that's the way we're built, but it's not, you were abused. It wasn't yours. And I know we could say that 20 more times, but it is such an intense process to get that healing. Jill, how would you direct Andy to get some freedom in this area?
Well, first of all, Andy, when I hear people say, I wished I had done something or I could have done something, right? That's actually a way of giving yourself a sense of greater control than you had. Because if it was in your power to have done something, right, then you could have changed it. Right? And so the guilt is a byproduct of that, but it still feels better than realizing, no, probably there wasn't anything you could have done. Right? That person who abused you was bigger and more powerful and had more control over you than you could do in getting away, right? Because if you could have gotten away, you would have. So that tells me you couldn't. Right? And that's a hard thing to accept because it's like, you mean I couldn't have changed the outcome? So there's a part of you that's still trying to change the outcome, even though intellectually you know you can't.
Yeah.
Right? So that in terms of...
And that guilt, when it rears its head, it's not every day, but, when it comes up, it's really hard to deal with that feeling of guilt, of being able to have made my life different.
Absolutely. And some of that is just grieving that this happened to your life, right? And it caused the consequences that it caused. Like when you said, I could have made my life different. Yeah, but this bad thing happened, right? And so it did alter the course of your life. Now, that doesn't mean it has to completely define your life. Right? And the guilt and the trying to kind of control it yourself keeps you tied to it.
Well, and you You mentioned too, Andy, that you had 2 divorces and now this issue with masturbation is continuing to be a problem. But it just, if you don't have freedom, it just means there's more work to do. Not that you didn't do it right. It's just, it is an indication that you still have some work to do. We all do. We all do until it's just part of the process. But you want to work towards that freedom. Jill?
Right. So a couple of things. There's, I don't know if you've heard of Dan Allender, but his book, Wounded Heart, it's not something we carry here, but it would be worth checking out for you because he deals with that whole issue of guilt in there. And then, Becky, I think either our Emotional Freedom Workshop or Every Man's Battle. I think
Every Man's Battle would.
Andy.
I think Every Man's Battle,
Okay.
Andy. I think it would just be a great place because part of the thing that we help the men with is it's a no shame zone. It's just part of a healing journey. But Jim, since you are a man and you are on the show, what would you? How would you direct?
Well,
Andy?
Andy, most men struggle with masturbation, and I think sometimes because it's still silent and people don't talk about it, but a lot of men do.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the greatest Christian counselors ever used to say that 8 out of 10 guys, by the time they're 18, have a masturbation experience, and the other 2 are probably liars, right? I mean, he said that as a joke, but it's kind of true, okay?
Yeah.
So what you're experiencing is somewhat normal. Now, what you do with that is where it's key. Let's say that you're having a masturbation experience and you're connecting to porn. Okay, no, not good. Let's say that it's obsessive compulsive, that you don't know how to cope with stress, and so you cope with stress by having a masturbation experience. And that's not smart, see. Let's say that you have a deep problem with lust. Well, the Bible's pretty clear on what we do with lust. So there are things that would say this is how you starve it, there's ways to stop, etc. Then there's that gray line, that fine line where there are times where it's a release. And Christian leaders have different opinions on this. For example, if you were in the Catholic Church would say it's a sin. Most in the Protestant Church don't say it necessarily that strongly. So it's not a good answer. I'm going to sound like a politician here, but you're going to have to decide what is right with you and God. I think the Holy Spirit speaks to us differently. And I honestly think he might speak to you in one way and to somebody else in another. I'm not suggesting that because you're feeling some of this shame, is it true? Is it right shame, or is it a false sense of shame? Those are the kinds of conversations you want to have.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I've been listening to your show and Every Man's Battle, and I thought, well, maybe I should buy this book. I don't live in Dallas, but I thought, okay, why do I? And it has been infrequent. I've been able to go long periods of time, and I just started asking myself, why do I do this? Is it connected to abuse? Is it release?
Yeah. Those are good questions.
I come up with the answer that for myself, it's I can finally just release and relax, and when you're alone and you're dealing with rejection, the divorces were not my idea, but it's my value, my self-value is involved in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're asking the right
Yes,
questions.
absolutely. Andy, I think here's what I would suggest. We're going to send you a copy of the Every Man's Battle Workshop. We're getting close to the end of the show, so I want to make sure you get this information. And if you can't get to Dallas, we do have an online version of Every Man's Battle that we'll let the call screener give you that information, and maybe that will be that next step for you. We're so glad that you called, and I hope that something we said will get you further down the road to healing. That's what we're here for. We want to help you experience that new life. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, listeners. Stay in touch with us. And if you need anything, call us, 1-800-NEW-LIFE or newlife.com. We'll see you
Thanks
then.
for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE. But when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.